everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's Peter Planter, and today I'm going to talk about Philodendron Gloriosum. So many of you have been asking me on Instagram how to take care of Gloriosum because you've just got your Gloriosum with you, and you're scared because it's velvety. Like, it is one of the most growing fame plants, let's say. Like, its fame is slowly growing, and other than this one, there's Philodendron Melanochrysum, Philodendron Glorious, which is almost the same species or almost the same look as this one, but Philodendron Gloriosum is a little bit different than the other two that I mentioned. So let's get started because I wanna share with you my experiences with my Philodendron Gloriosums. With my Philodendron Gloriosum here with me, and yeah, shall we start? Because let's start. So Philodendron Gloriosum is a family of plants that is part of the Araceae family, and it is native to Colombia. So this one is not native here in the Philippines, and it is mostly seen as an invasive species, as they say, like the invasive one, but they are not really that invasive compared to the other species that are introduced here in the Philippines or in the tropics, where they grow very wild and they grow uncontrollably in the wild. But this Philodendron Gloriosum does not grow very much like as quick as the others. So it's not purely invasive, but it has been introduced here in the tropics. So I'm not saying that it's not invasive, but it is kind of invasive, but not so much. Alright, so the foliage for this Philodendron Gloriosum is a cordate shape, or the heart-leaf foliage. So as you can see, this one's a cutting from this mother plant here. So if you notice, my cutting is not that much perfect yet because it hasn't finished unfurling or like hardening off, but then I cut it off because of some issues that I'm gonna talk about later in the video. So if you can see, this this foliage is cordate and it's velvety, of course, and some Gloriosums have pink edges or pink like tips right here, and the other Gloriosum have fairly pale green to white and to pinkish white kind of veining here. But I noticed that mine is the white one, and it's very pronounced, and I really can't stop just looking at this one. Just by looking, it's very pronounced. So I noticed that some of you have DM me on Instagram about your Gloriosum not being this kind of dark, and like the veinings are not white, but I have a guess that my Gloriosum is a dark form of Gloriosum and yours is just a regular form. There are some sites that would tell you that there are different kinds of species of Gloriosum. There are the dark foliage Gloriosum, or the dark form. There is the regular green form, which is the pale green veining, and then there is the round form, and there is the elongated form, or the long form, which is not typically what you see on Gloriosum, but there is a long form. So as you might know, Gloriosum is not very, let's say, common. They're not really common in households. They're just mostly like one of the priced plants, let's say, but they're not really super duper expensive. So talking about rarity, or let's say its abundancy in nature. So regarding about conservation, Philodendron Gloriosum is already on the vulnerable side. So that means that it is not like endangered. It's not also very abundant in nature, but it is on the vulnerable side. We don't want it to reach on the endangered species or extinct species. What I advise you to do is not to poach plants from nature, even if the plants are not endangered or extinct yet. Or let's say, what do you call that? Yeah, let's just put it into that one, like it's not yet endangered. So regardless of it being not endangered yet or something like that, I advise you not to poach plants just for the sake of selling. And if you might want to get a sample of the plant, you can take a sample, I guess, but take a foliage or two and have a cutting. Propagate it and make it many. Don't take the entire plant and disturb the entire ecosystem. So this conservation status that I just mentioned earlier is based on the IUCN, or the International Union for Conservation of Nature. I'm right. So this is based on their studies and everything like that, and data. So yes, Philodendron Gloriosum is on the vulnerable side. Please take note of that, and we don't want it to be on the endangered side. So next, we are going to talk about the care for this beautiful velvety philodendron that I have, or that anybody of you has. So first, let's talk about light. In nature, Philodendron Gloriosum receives dappled sunlight, probably under the canopy of trees, crawling around and everything like that. So you want to, let's say, mimic their natural habitat by giving them dappled kind of sunlight, or let's just say bright indirect sunlight. So mine is growing under a polycarbonate roof that is, let's say, it's just equals to a 30% or 50% shade cloth, or shade cloth. So I think that the reason why as well that my Gloriosum is pushing out like so pronounced, an absolutely pronounced veining right here, is because it's receiving a lot of sunlight as well, indirect sunlight. I mean, you do not want to starve your plants with sunlight or nutrients, because it might die, or it won't just do as good as the normal plants would do in nature. That's it. So watering requirements for this Gloriosum, since it is a crawling plant, we don't want this to rot. Okay, it is very susceptible for rot, and the roots are kind of fatty, meaty. So the water requirements for this kind of plants right here is basically, you do not want it to dry out completely, but you want your soil to be a little bit moist, on the moist side, not too moist, but on the moistier side. All right, we don't want it to dry out, because this plant is a little bit sensitive than your other typical philodendrons. This plant would, so Philodendron Gloriosum would typically yellow up and drop leaves when it is dried completely, and you don't want that for your plant because it is such a pretty plant. So yes, and in relation to water, soil requirements for Philodendron Gloriosum is a very simple soil mix. So you want an aroid mix. Typically, they say it's orchid bark, compost, well draining light soil mix, and that's it. But what I use is rice peel or tipasi, and then compost, well draining light soil mix, charcoal. Charcoal helps with the bacteria and the odor, and it typically aerates the soil more, so that's what you do. And when you plant Gloriosum, you don't want to plant the tubers inside or under tubers, or let's just say the nodes underneath the soil, because it would be susceptible for rot, and those kind of crawling philodendrons or crawling plants do not want their tubers, let's just say tubers, to be under the soil and get wet all the time. Alright, so next thing is the growing habits for this philodendron. As what I mentioned, the growing habits for Philodendron Gloriosum is a crawling type of growing habit. If you might have noticed, Philodendron glorious and Philodendron melanochrysum is a climbing philodendron, while in the other hand, this Philodendron Gloriosum is a crawling philodendron. So you might want to pot it in a pot where it's longer instead of a roundier type of pot. And I just recently repotted my Philodendron Gloriosum because it already overgrown its pot. So that would lead us to propagation, the last part of this video. So propagation for this beautiful plant, as you can see right here, I have some propagations with me. So you can take a philodendron, you can take a cutting out of this one by cutting out a leaf with a node. Just for example, this one. This one has been in water for almost 2-3 weeks now, and don't mind the leaf because I was too impatient enough. I was really impatient to propagate this one. And when I was propagating this one and repotting this one, I realized that there was a pup right here. So I also propagated this one with it's already pushing out another new leaf, unfurling new leaf, and you can see the white veining and the kind of pinkish blush underneath the leaves. So it has 2 small leaves, and what they say is when you want your Gloriosum to grow bigger leaves, you don't want it to overgrow its pot, because when it can't absorb any nutrients on the newer side of the plant, it won't grow as much bigger leaves as the older leaves. So we want it to be in soil still. So this one is one of my babies. It is growing underneath the canopy of my big tree outside my house, and it's growing together with my other monsteras, philodendron, and other good stuff right there in my collection. And then lastly, I'm gonna move that aside. Lastly, I have this little guy right here. Alright, I'm just gonna move it here. Okay, so this little guy right here is the eldest, or one of the oldest leaf of this plant right here that is together with my big Gloriosum. This actually snapped off when I was repotting this one, so I had to propagate it as well and repot it into another pot. As you can see, it doesn't have a new growth yet. I'm still waiting, but luckily there's no problems in this one. A little bit yellowish and stuff like that. So it's no problem. The last one that I'm gonna talk about, so this was like one of the last, but the last one is pests. Yes, Gloriosum is susceptible for spider mites. Unfortunately, I've dealt with spider mites before on this plant, and good thing it didn't go as bad as I thought it would go. And they are also susceptible for thrips. So one thing that I can advise for you to get rid of thrips and mites and any other pest that you might have in your house plant is neem oil. You can dilute neem oil in a spray bottle and then spray your leaves every 2 days in a week, and be sure to make sure your other plants does not have thrips, because you cannot control that if your other plant has thrips and this one you're trying to avoid thrips or any other pests. So you get the point. It's like being contagious or something like that. So I think that's it for this video. I hope that this was educational for you and you learned something from it. And you know what? I realized something. I realized I didn't turn on my light in my room. So I basically have only my spotlight. So I hope that it's not too dark. And yeah, I really hope that this video would help you take care of your Philodendron Gloriosum. Don't forget to don't be scared to DM me on Instagram, or let's say send me comment down below if you have any questions for this plant. So if any of you wants to watch more videos in the future, please recommend down below. Don't be scared. I'm open to any suggestions, or DM me on Instagram. And yes, I hope everyone is doing well. Keep safe, everyone. Stay healthy. Keep your mental health healthy as well. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, it's Peter Planter. Subscribe down below. And if you like this video, if you learned something, like this video. And I will see you in my next one. Bye.